field, put a +1/+1 count. Whenever Oran-Rief Ooze attacks, put a +1/+ count. Oh my god. Whenever Oran-Rief Ooze attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target. Oh my god. So Oran-Rief How's it going, y'all? Titan Smash MTG here, and today we're back with another Zendikar Rising Standard deck tech. This time we're going to be looking at another one that I'm excited to be playing for this early access event, and that is Abzan Counters. Now, we already tried to do some Selesnya counters in the last event. It was a lot of fun, worked out pretty well for us. But once it got to standard, it just never quite had the legs for it. A lot of reasons. For one, it was just a little bit too slow for the format. It could do some big, cool things, put some counters on creatures and whatnot. But with what the rest of the format was doing, it just wasn't quite enough to be there. However, with rotation looming, a lot of things moving the format, everything's kind of wide open again, and Abzan Counters actually got a lot of stuff added to it with Zendikar Rising that makes me believe it could possibly be a real deck to work with. Now, before we begin, early access event, once again coming up this Wednesday, September 16th, Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can watch me stream that at twitch.tv/TitansmashMTG. So as I was saying, this is a deck we tried before in Selesnya colors. We want to make this Abzan and see if it can work, because Black got a few good toys for this as well. So let's take a look at this deck, see what it can do well. Let's go! So we'll start off with the 1 and 2 mana creatures here, and I say that with quotation marks because we have Stonecoil Serpent here, even though it can be anything. But sometimes you just need that 1/1 put down, and if so, then you can put Stonecoil Serpent down, and it is a creature at least. But we hope you play in Swarm Shambler. Swarm Shambler is green mana for a 0/0. Swarm Shambler enters battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it becomes the target of a spell the opponent controls, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. You can pay 1 and tap it, put a +1/+1 counter on Swarm Shambler. So this is doing its very best impression of Hangerback Walker. Now obviously when it dies you don't get that value. Now you get the 1/1 counter if they targeted it. But it's definitely no Hangerback Walker, but still it's a pretty good card. It's really nice too if they try to target it with removal and you can protect it somehow or make it bigger, get it out of combat damage that would usually kill it, and then you still get that insect token out of it. And it's nice that they can hit other creatures with counters on them as well and still get that value Swarm Shambler be on the battlefield. So a pretty nice creature there. But one overall, we can grow it late game if we need to. It's a little bit of a mana sink. It kind of stinks we don't have a way to give it vigilance in here like we did in the mono green beast list that I posted earlier with Kahira. But still, it's a solid deck. This is what these kind of decks want to do. With Conclave Mentor, you're paying 1 and tapping to put 2 counters on it. Just a lot of things that this can do. At the 2-drop slot, as we said, Conclave Mentor, the whole reason the counters deck exists in the first place. Green and white for a 2/2. If 1 or more 1/1 counters we put on a target creature you control, that many +1 1/1 counters get put on there instead. When it dies, you gain life equal to its power, which is pretty relevant because I expect the meta to be aggressive when the season starts out, so being able to gain a little bit of life if this thing dies is nice. But the way this thing can just combo off and put so many counters on your creatures is insane. A new toy we got from this set in Zendikar Rising is Luminarch Aspirant. We're playing 4 of this as well. 1 and a white for a 1/1 at the beginning of combat on your turn. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. So even if you just have the Aspirant out there, you can play this down. It's a 2/2 when it has a counter on it. That's not super exciting, but it is really nice to be able to just continually put counters on stuff every turn. So if you get into a place where you're kind of at a board stall, your Aspirant's slowly building your battlefield up to be bigger than your opponent's, which is really nice. But overall, I think this is a great toy. This is something that the old deck would have loved to have in Selesnya counters. So even here with rotation, this is a good toy for it. Some really nice ones here at the 3-drop slot. We're playing 3 of Grakmaw, Skyclave, Ravager. Now this is again the main reason we go to black here in Abzan. 1 black-green for a 0/0 that enters battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. Whenever another creature you control dies, if it had a 1/1 counter on it, put a 1/1 counter on Grakmaw. When Grakmaw dies, create an XX black and green Hydra creature where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on Grakmaw. I love creatures like this that can get big from other things happening around it, and then should it die, it still leaves a creature behind unless it was exiled. So, and obviously in a world when you're going around extinction events and stuff like that, Grakmaw may not be amazing in that situation, but anytime it's getting Murderous Ridered or Eliminate or something like that, it's going to leave something behind, which is really nice. And again, it just puts a lot of pressure on the opponent. Well, they've got to answer this, or it's going to slowly grow on its own. And if their answer isn't efficient enough for it, it leaves behind another little friend to take out as well. So Grakmaw, Skyclave, Ravager, pretty good card in this list here. I'm looking forward to that one. Oran-Rief Ooze is the other creature we have here. This is 2 to green for a 2/2. Whenever Oran-Rief Ooze enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Whenever Oran-Rief Ooze attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on each attacking creature with a +1/+1 counter on it. So this really rewards you overall as curving out, having creatures have all these counters on them. Now, Oran-Rief Ooze does have to attack to get that triggered ability to go on the stack, but if it does, like, your battlefield just goes up so crazy, especially if you have a Conclave Mentor there just doubling those counters. That's a lot of extra damage. It makes this combat math hell for an opponent if they're not ready for this one. But very cool card, very versatile. I like that it can put the counter on itself, like Luminarch Aspirant can, because that's just, again, it's just another way you put the counter on this one when it comes in, then you get to attack in the next turn, it's getting more counters, and it just kind of adds up and goes crazy. So, Oran-Rief Ooze, easy 4 of here, hell of a 3-drop for this deck. I love this card. Looking at the 4-drop creatures now, we're playing a full play set of Basri's Lieutenant. This was in the deck last time with Selesnya. Not crazy exciting card, but it does a lot of good things here. Vigilance, pro multicolor. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So we see this theme here in almost every creature once you get past 2 mana. When Basri's Lieutenant or another creature you control dies, if it had a +1/+1 counter on it, create a 2/2 White Knight token with Vigilance. So love having these kind of things where you can put your board. You don't have to worry about playing around the Wrath as much. You just keep pressuring the opponent like you want to do. And then should they have the board wiped, you just get a bunch of tokens anyway. Continue swinging because you're getting tokens from Basri's Lieutenant, you're getting tokens from Grakmaw, and just really a good way to withstand damage. And we'll look at some more cards later, which are also good at that. The other 4-dropper playing here is the 3 of Polukranos Unchained. It's legendary, so you don't have 4 of, but a 4-mana 6/6 is pretty good. Now, obviously, it's weak to things like Stomp because of the protection rule and the way that works, but still, a 4-mana 6/6 that can come back as a 4-mana 12/12, yeah, we sign up for that. We like that around here. And plus the fact that you have things like Oran-Rief Ooze when it attacks and put counters back on it is super, super nice. So that's it for the creatures. I'll look at the non-creature spells. We're playing a 2 of Inscription of Abundance. 1 on a green, 2-mana instant, but you can kick it for 3 more mana, so 5 mana total, which isn't out of the question. And if you kick it, you get to do all the following. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. That's what we want to do in this deck. Target player gains X life, or X the greatest power among creatures they control. Your creatures get pretty big here, so that's a lot of life to gain too, and in aggressive matchups, that can just change the game right there. Then finally, target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. And again, as I said in the 10 decks video, they all happen in that order should you kick it, which is the exact order you want to do it anyway in most cases. But if you just need to do one of these for 2 mana, it's a cheap little instant. Putting 2 counters on a creature in mid-combat is something that's going to blow people out a lot of times and really work out well with this deck. At the 4-drop slot, we're playing 2 of Felidar Retreat, and again, I don't know if this should be less or more. Like, it's such a cool card, and I think I could see myself playing none of it, and I could see myself playing 4 of it. But 3 and a white for enchantment that has landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, choose 1. You can either put a 2/2 White Cat Beast token on the battlefield, or you can put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain Vigilance in a turn. I see this as a way, if we can curve out 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, then somehow if we haven't got wiped by then, say it's a creature matchup and we're pretty, it's pretty close there. It's a little bit nitpicky on if you want to attack or not. You play your Felidar Guardian, you drop land number 5, put some counters on there, and that's not even taking into effect things like Fabled Passage. Fabled Passage, crack, played other land, counter on this twice, counter on everything, and then Vigilance Swing seems really good. Lastly, we can't forget about the Planeswalker. We're playing 2 of Nissa of the Shadow Boughs. 2 black and a green for a 4 loyalty Planeswalker that has landfall that gives it a counter. You can +1 on this, untap target land you control, it becomes a 3/3 with menace in the end of turn. Then the -5 there, being able to search up and get a creature and put counters on it. Again, I think this thing kind of wants to do. Works out pretty nicely there. So I'm not sure how Nissa actually really fits in this deck, because again, we've not played with these cards yet. It's hard to know. This new Nissa may suck, and if that's the case, it's an easy cut. So we'll see if Nissa can make the cut in this thing. It's not like a creature that relies on counters like some of these other things here, but it's just a good card in these colors that still does have some synergy with the counter theme, which is really nice. Lastly, we have the spell/lands, the Mortal Face card. So we're playing 2 Turntimber Symbiosis. We're playing 1 Emeria's Retreat and then 1 Agadeem's Awakening. Just really nice spells where if we get to this late in the game, we're able to do these things. Now, hopefully, we're already killing them by that point. But it's nice if we need to play the land, we can. But if we have this gas in hand, it should we draw it late. And that allows us to play less lands. So we're playing 20 lands total here, but really it plays like 24 to 25 with these other spells we're playing. So, again, just love the versatility of being able to do things like this, cut down on our land, play more gas here, because we have such explosive creatures that can get really big and out of hand real quick. Now, I did have to make some changes in the last video, I took Wildwood Scourges out. It's a card that can go crazy. But if you notice that, because this whole thing was if you have Hydras that get counters, or non-Hydra creatures get counters, then it gets a counter as well. But now we're playing the Grakmaw, we're playing Polukranos. we have these Hydras in the deck all of a sudden where it doesn't trigger as much, so it's a little bit too slow for what we wanted to do with this, even though it's still a potentially crazy card. But overall, liking the look of this deck quite a bit. Really excited to play this one, see how it goes. I think there's also quite a few different ways to build this, so we'll just have to see how it works out. Thank you all for watching once again this Wednesday, September 16th, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time at twitch.tv/TitansmashMTG. Let's go.